Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris and this is Flat Tank Journey. These are the engines that I'm hoping to build a good one out of for my 27 wedge tank. This is the engine that I got with it that is pretty flogged out and, not great. Nonetheless, there's a crank in it, there's a magneto of sorts on it. There was an oil sight feed bowl, but it was broken. The cases are clean and tidy, and I think the barrel of that engine is now sitting on the test bed bike, and we're looking at it sitting there. With the original bike, I got a fair bit of stuff, and there's a heap of flywheels, and look, I've got a pair here that were under the bench, and then there's literally a milk crate full of them. I think there's 5 or 6 pairs of flywheels and bits and pieces, conrods and all sorts of stuff. What's going to be best? Well, I don't know. Really, I don't know. Except that I'm going to put that one aside. This was the complete engine that I bought for the project, and it is complete. It's got a stuck exhaust valve. Other than that, it's pretty good. That's the cylinder off it, sorry, mental blank, and it's not in bad nick. I've given that a slight hone. There's a few scores and marks, but you know what, it's pretty good. This engine I'm gonna put with the bike that's to be sold. I think it's a cracking engine to go into a restoration project, and I'm hoping it builds enormous value to that project for when I go to push it on. It's just, it's good, but it's not as good as what I've got. Rightio, here's what I think is the engine I'm going to use. Now, this came from the parts stash and came with the parts bike. I'd say it's been vapor blasted, and it's had the best of everything put on it that Gary had. It's got new everything, all the best of the pieces that his mate made, the nuts, the bolts, the primary chain case mounts, sump plugs, everything on it was the best that he had. Everything's clean. All the oil fittings are there. The only thing it's missing is the valve lifter. Now, weirdly, the valve lifters are always missing. I've got one on that engine, and I am going to steal it, and the next guy can try and find one. Good luck. They're never there. I just get over it and you make some sort of lever to put on it. Actually, I always choke mine. If I want to stop it, I just choke the things to death. This, I believe, is the pick of the engines. It's got a great oil sight feed bowl. The glass is missing, but I'll rat one out of the parts bike. All the fittings are on it. Knob, spring clip, oil taps on the back. Everything's good. Come down on the bench, we're going to have a look at that, and then I'm going to whip the barrel off and see what the barrel's like inside. I'm hoping that this is the barrel, and that I've got a piston that fits closely. Otherwise, we might have to rat something else out. I have got a spare barrel here, and there's a piston in it, and I should have put some lube in that because it's just hung up in there. Hang on, might have moved. There it is. Now, I think this, with the original bike, was the piston that they meant to use. And the barrel they meant to use, I think that's a really, really, really good barrel and a good piston. Let's have a look at this thing on the bench before I disassemble it, and then you can tell me what you think. Turn this around so you can get a better look at it. Now you can see that somebody's gone to the trouble of vapor blasting or scrubbing back these cases. You can see that all these fixings are new. They've all been remade and, you know, really is the best of what the guy had. This, now I've never tried to take that out, but it is loose. From memory, I think you actually have to remove the oil tap, and you have to remove the oil tap with the lever downwards, I think. I'll do that in a minute. But there it is. Valve lifter, tappet, sorry. Valve lifters in it. I believe the gears are in it. Oil fittings are in it. Valve lifter adjuster is in it. And a complete oil sight feed bowl. That in itself is worth $300 or $400. The barrel, it doesn't look too bad. It's got an exhaust plug and an inlet and a, I'm really struggling today. It's got an exhaust plug and a spark plug in them, and they are both in pretty good nick. The barrel's is a bit moth-eaten on the top, and I'll show you that in just a second. Leave that out for a minute. The barrel's got a tiny bit of wear on the top, but all in all, is pretty good. I'm going to take the barrel off. Let's have a look inside the barrel and see what it looks like. So with the lever facing downwards, the oil tap will come out. With the lever facing sideways, it won't come out. And then only with the fitting off the bottom of the bowl will the bowl fitting turn around. How do I know this? Well, I have tried getting these things apart before. Now, I'll be devastated if I go to take this thing out and it's broken off. It's turning very freely. Somebody's been in there and looked after it. And there it is. So that's the whole thing. The thread at the top is bigger than at the bottom. And the bottom's threaded in independently. This piece turns and lets you feed more or less oil through the sight feed bowl. In the bottom is, or should be, a worm drive. No, so the worm drive's missing out of it. Now I did see it in a container and I have several, so that's not a big deal. The worm feeds the oil into the engine, or at least that's how I think it goes. It's not the simplest thing in the world, but it does appear to work. Well, you hope it works or she goes bang. Now I'm going to leave those out because this is going off to an engine builder and I don't really want either of those parts to get damaged. That's pretty good. Let's see if I can get the barrel off. You can see when you're turning this thing around that you could damage that sight feed bowl really easily, and they have a history of breaking off, so that's why it's best off the engine. Right, let's look and see what's inside. And there's nothing inside, which is what I expected. I knew there was no crank in it. I don't believe there's any bearings in it. No, there isn't. But everything else is really good, and I'm really happy with it. So, you know, I think it's now time to look at this. No point in showing you, you're not going to be able to see. It looks pretty clean. I'm going to run the hone up and down it and see if there's any score marks, and we'll go from there. I just have a little cheap hone that I bought years ago. It's not worth a lot of money, and you know, it's easy enough to use. So I put some penetrating fluid down that, and you just want to be able to lubricate it. And all I'm really trying to do is to see if I can get the bore clean enough to have a look at it. And if you let those come out, I'll throw the stuff all over you. I only give this a clean up and then we'll have a look. Now, my wife's just been into the shed with mini quiches for my afternoon tea, and they're piping hot and they're beautiful. So I've had a little clean out in there, and look, as you might expect, there's a few marks and a couple of scores, and looks like a piston's been sitting in it for a while, but overall, it doesn't look too bad. And I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over it. Is it okay? I don't know. I'm going to go to an engine builder and I'm going to get him to tell me, because as an engine builder, I make a really good marshmallow maker. Let's have a look through our pistons and see what we've got. I've had a break while I finished the last of the quiches, and I've had a look through. Now weirdly, I've only got one piston. I thought I had more, but it appears I don't. I might have to go back and watch the original video. I found a gudgeon pin with the brass caps, and I've got a piston. There's an awful lot of slop in that. I don't know, but I wouldn't have thought that that was going to be any good. Has it fit in there? Same sort of fit. So I'm going to take that to Les and see what he says. Now here's the piston out of the barrel from the original project. And that's still got a bit of sideways, so it fits better in there. Is it correct? I don't know. So I've got a piston, I've got a gudgeon pin, I've got a conrod, I've got a big end. Now, it's in a bag with bearings and other bits and pieces. It's probably not any good, but it could be ground and have oversized bearings put in it. So I'll put that aside. I've got a couple of valves that are perhaps salvageable, so they'll go to him as well. And then a valve guide. I think there's more bits and pieces somewhere. There's another gudgeon pin. I'm going to hunt all that down and take all that with him. Let's have a look at the rest of the pistons that I got with the new parts bike, and we'll have a look at them and see if any of them fit better in either of these barrels. Now, here's the first piston, and I appear to have the gudgeon pin well wedged in there. I just can't get a grip of it to get it out, and I haven't got a pin extractor. It's got rings on it. It's got 2 rings at the top and a ring at the bottom. When you apply those rings in, you know, they're a decent enough fit. Is it any good? Well, hard to say. Again, not an expert. Here's another one that's missing the top ring, and it's as loose as. So I'm guessing that's a standard piston, and then if I clean it up, I'll find STD written on it somewhere. Big aluminium thing, no rings. Bit of movement, wouldn't have thought so. Last one, let's see if I can get this gudgeon pin out. No, it doesn't want to come out either. Oh, and it's as loose as. Like, it's got to be for something else, because it just is super wrong. I'll grab my calipers and we'll measure these and see what they are. That might have been a better idea to start with. I'm going to measure these in a consistent spot and we'll see what they are. So, I'm going to call that 62 1/4. Might get a texter or a Sharpie and write that on top. $62.3. All right, let's make sure these are zero. Zero them out. $63.3. So a full 100 mil, full 1 millimetre bigger. 0.3. Much different, that's for sure. $64.04. So, you know, that's a pretty big piston. Or, bigger than the first one. 1.7 mil bigger than the first one. And this one's smaller. This is 6250. Fits nicer in that barrel. So this barrel appears to be quite big. And there's, you know, there's an argument as to whether we've got a piston to fit it. $63.60. So I'm not a great measurer, and that feels loose to me. 64 appears to be the biggest piston I have, and whether or not that's okay is arguable to me. How big's the barrel? Probably got a taper on the bottom. Says 63.77, so that can't be right. 64.98, so 65 mil. 64.30. And this piston is 64.04. So this is, you know, again, equal to the biggest piston I've got. And fits well in that barrel. So perhaps that's the barrel I'm going to use. At least I've got a selection, but like all of these things, most of the pistons that you get are too small because the barrels have been wide out. Let's have a look at the rest of the bits and pieces before I package all this up, get a tub and get it ready for the engine builder. I'll just start lobbing a couple of bits and pieces back together so that we don't lose them, because at the moment I can't find the pieces for my rally. Hopefully I've bought the gearbox pieces, but can't find the bits I took off it. I've put them somewhere for safekeeping. Nonetheless, there we go. There's our engine. Let's get those off the side, because they don't need to be there. Only complicating the issue for the engine builder. Let's put those with the treasured pieces that generally live on top of my machinist chest. After suffering mild heart failure while I searched the shed for what I consider to be my choice spares tub, I found it, put away for safekeeping. So I consider these are the premium set of crankcases. Have they got numbers to say they're a matching pair? Have got numbers on the bottom. Knocked around, hard to tell. Ooh, 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 ooh. It's actually a little crack in one of those, or a scar. It's hard to tell. Anyway, I'm going to put those aside because I think they're crackers. So into the tub they go to the engine builder. I think both barrels better go. That's the barrel that came off that engine. And this is the barrel and the piston that I think are the best match for one another. Super. Rightio. Now, this is a conrod, and in the bag is the conrod with the big end, and I've been to the engine builders and he took it apart. That conrod has been reground to match the big end and the bearings, and I actually think that that's ready to go in an engine. So that's really super. There's a pair of really clean valves with bead blasted springs and the collars that hold them in. That's super. Couple more conrods, sets of timing gears, bearings. They're not great. I believe valve guides and all that sort of bizzo. A couple more big ends and a few more bits and pieces. So all of that can go around to Les too. I have another big end, a small end. There's some small ends in there, and that can go to him as well. Then, whilst I don't consider any of these pistons to be super, I'm thinking that all of that can go to him too, because he might as well have everything I've got in one go. That belongs there. Couple of push drives, some bits and pieces. So I'm going to put all of those 5 pistons and all of that stuff back in there, and if I've got a lid, I'll find a lid for it somewhere. I'm going to put that in the tub or with the tub too. Another set of gears can go with it. And then I've got a container of flywheels, like a milk crate full, and there's a pair too. These containers here contain clutch parts, another big end, a bearing, brackets, a fuel tap. Oh, interesting. Let's see what's in these pill bottles before I call a close to it. Buttons, but they could be for the ends of gudgeon pins, so maybe they better go too. They were gear change parts, so we'll leave those behind. I don't want to take the world round there, but I want to give him enough to get on with and to succeed with. The last item that really came with the engine, with the parts stash, was a magneto. Now, oh, there's a gudgeon pin. I believe it to be the correct magneto. I think it's a cracker. So does it work? I don't think so. Turns over, but I don't believe it's been rebuilt. Although it's very, very clean. I will let Les have a look at it and he will know. If it hasn't been rebuilt, I will send it off to be rebuilt. So that can go around to him as well. And the cable and all that sort of stuff. There we go. Now we'll draw a conclusion to this engine episode. I'm very excited. I don't think the engine will be cheap to build, but it's out of my sphere of expertise. Actually, I don't have a sphere of expertise. Getting an engine builder in, getting to balance the crank, getting the piston and the rings and the bore size and the valve and the timing all right is key to having a nice little project. So there we go. That's the engine. That's Flat Tank Journey. Hope you've had a good time. Think about hitting the subscribe button. Send me a comment. Tell me what you think of the engine. I reckon it looks okay. Have a good one. Cheers.